Hello and welcome to this walkthrough. We're going to talk about resistances, crafting, and tips and tricks to get through the campaign as painless as possible. So first step is first step. You gotta create a character and choose what mode you're in. And then if you haven't ever played the game before, it does give you a whole heap of general things for the first sort of map and a half. Now, the first thing I will say is you should probably switch whatever your first skill is to your actual default attack. It's generally a better idea. Now, the first chapter, you want to be looking out for fire res. Obviously, you don't have much choice if it's your first character, because you won't have any of the affixes or anything that you can actually do. Now, the fire res shouldn't be that big a deal as long as you got a character that's leveling well. Now, builds and stuff, we won't talk about that. We'll just assume that your build can survive the campaign. Now, this is the first sort of boss, but not boss. This guy you'll see a few times just as a general guy. So, he's like a gatekeeper. But that's your first real test, and if you really get burnt and everything, it's probably the way you are interacting with the mechanics, and you just got to stay out of the way more. Now, you reach the first encampment that you're going to chill out at. You go talk to Gravel, or whatever his name is. You'll see him again later. He's just one of the characters. You talk to Lena, she tells you to continue on, and you start being the hero of the thing. Now you got a portal to the town, which, if depending on whether you're using a loot filter or not, you don't have to. But if you aren't, you will pick up a lot of stuff probably, and you'll need to go back to town and deal with that. So you have an inventory. Now these guys shouldn't be that big a deal as long as you actually don't get into a group. These guys, however, coming up, you'll run into these guys throughout the campaign, and they're a pain in the backside because they're a little tanky, and depending on when you get your damage throughout the character, or RNG, whether you get a decent weapon or whatever your character is based on, these guys can be a pain if you get 4 or 5 of the archers shooting at you. They do take your health quite heavily. That's where the resistances also come in. So you want to look out for obviously physical, because a lot of things hit. And first chapter you want to try to focus on fire res, but you're trying to get all of it. Obviously you're trying to get the main elements as high as possible, the lightning, cold, fire, and you can have a decent, without capping, poison, necro, void. I'd suggest you try to cap, even if it's just mainly for the campaign. Now, this area is generally where you start getting at least one skill that you're going to use for the rest of the campaign. In mage, it's your shield. You get around level 4, I think. Now, this storeroom is a side quest that you actually do because it gives you a passive reward. You go fight through, and then you come into that guy again that you fought in the first part. So you should be well aware of this guy by now. So if you struggled the first time, you would have learned how to improve. So you run around. As soon as you see the red circle, move out. If you've got a range attack, then use the range attack mainly on him. And you pretty much, if you can, you just keep moving, because their mechanic mainly, for most of the things, will be your last point. There are a few things that you need to move just before they attack, because they do actually lock onto you a split second before they do attack. Now you just knock over the armor and that's the quest complete. You go talk to this guy. You can talk to him before and get the quest, or you can just do the quest. These guys turn up. In a group they are a pain, but once you get your damage going and your resistances and getting some decent gear, you'll actually find them more of a bother than anything, but that's a lot of things actually. A lot of things come in packs and it's more trash monsters. Now these guys, they're fine, but as like anything, they can be a pain if you don't like just move out of the way. The phoenixes, don't let them actually stand in front of you, and don't make that mistake of just standing there and copping that, because early on you won't be able to take much of that. This guy is range and he'll focus on you, you move, you just re-engage, and yeah, you see that circle, you get out of it, and he's not that hard as long as you just keep tracking. You talk to the guy, you got to run through. A lot of it's just running from the one door to another. You don't have to actually attack most things. All you have to do is just get to the next door. This is probably the biggest waste of a little area, because you literally have 1 to 2 shrines between that door and here just for that to happen, and then you go back to town and tell her that he got kidnapped. You don't face anyone, don't do anything, so you can't go wrong, but it's one of the biggest moments of early on. Now this you can just run through. You don't have to worry about that side quest because it doesn't lead to anything. Collect all the quests and have a look at the rewards and figure out what you want to do. This is the only thing that gates you from getting to that exit, is 4 guys and a bird, but you can just run past them. There's only until I think the boss of this chapter that you can't just run pretty much from door to door. Obviously leveling is important to try to get those skills unlocked so you actually got various damage types, but as long as you're trying to get fire res, this is the first boss area, the summit. This is the only one you can't just run through because you actually got to fight the guy. Even by the end of this video, I have 8% fire. Just to give you a heads up of how much you can actually avoid if you don't stand in the way. Now, I get melted if I make a silly mistake and I'm slightly in the hitbox of something. I wouldn't get melted if I actually had some fire res, but we take him down. All you do is stand on the side. Once he does an area of effect thing, you move away. You can tell he's about to do stuff. Like a lot of things, they tell you in advance. You just stand to the side, smack him, move out, and release him. Teleport back to camp. Then you have to talk to him, and then he doesn't necessarily work the first time. You got to talk to him like twice for him to actually progress. You talk to her, talk to him, and I actually got to talk to him again because it didn't actually engage the next bit. So I get the reward. If you don't get the reward, talk to him again. And then he does his thing and pulls out the shards. And then nice pretty lights, and we go traveling into the ruined era. Then you touch the shard, it opens up the gateway, and you're in chapter 2, where if you have any idea of the game and everything, you need void resistance. You need to work on it or have it already. Obviously it's limited by drops and that to a large degree. If you have picked up some affixes and stuff and you're getting melted, then the best thing to do, because you won't actually have much choice over gear and stuff, is just run through until like half of it. Just take out what you have to and just hit door to door to door, because generally the monsters in the areas are harder than the actual bosses because you can actually dodge the attacks. I uploaded a video before this one where I tried the mage and didn't upgrade any skills, any gear, didn't craft it, nothing. Ran from start to however far I could get and didn't upgrade anything. So it was purely based on drops, and I got remarkably far considering I did that. It was amazing what I actually could achieve. I didn't expect it. And then you want to do that side quest that was on the side with talk to the 3 guys, because it does give you a passive point. Now you've got to go around hitting all these trash mobs. Now Void's not so big a deal here because this guy just does his little face thing, so you need to try to stick to his side. The resistances shouldn't be a problem. Like, you should have enough health and stuff, unless you're making mistakes or you're picking fights that you shouldn't, or running around and then trying to fight a whole group. So you want to work on fire and void, but it's not a be all and end all. This is council chambers, as it says, the next like major part of your area. This is where you will unlock the forge, because you have to find the armory. That's the first idol unlock. If you are just doing all the side quests, look out for the passives and the idol unlocks. Now we go into the last archives. The first thing you want to do, because it takes you 2 seconds, and that symbol there with the exile in the circle, you want to leave that alone. I show you why, but just a heads up, you want to leave that guy alone. And probably until you're doing the monoliths and he starts dropping exalted stuff. That's purely why you're in here, and you actually have 2 choices. Return to the guy whose journal it is, or the gambler. Now you can do the good thing based on your character, roleplay type thing, or bad thing if your character's bad, or you could just do it based on reward. Now this exile takes forever if you have no damage, and then you got to dodge his attacks and heal, and it's really a time waste in my opinion early on. And we'll see the reward and you can judge for yourself. And then after probably much as it took me to take out some of the bosses, and the reward is that pair of boots. You can judge whether it's worth it or not. In that time I could have got to that door and probably the next area pretty easy. I could have probably got to that door and then at least halfway through this fight in the time it took me to take out that one guy for that one pair of boots. These, they do some lightning, so if you got, and cold obviously, but the main thing is the lightning ball that right there you don't want to stand in, and the fire there. You stand beside them and you whack them. As you saw, I got in the hitbox a little too much, and then you just stand beside each of them, take them out one at a time. If you got range attack, you can take them out in the bubble. You talk to Gazpacho there. This is what you get if you go to the gambler. So it's up to you whether you want the amulet or be a good guy and return the journal to the proper person. Then you go to the pre-spice. And now, this is another area where you can just run through, except you will drag things along. So if you drag things along with you, you want to have a movement character where you can actually move long enough that the AI stops following you. And this guy, you literally just hit and move when that purple beam's on you. And depending on whether what you got, minions, this, that, the other thing, depends on whether they're any difficult. The ads. Now you got to go into the shiny. You go in, you go here, and you literally run right round to go into that rift. Now I wanted to try to get the level, so I ran past. All that was down there was a monolith, and then I didn't even get the level. And then you just run through to the door. You don't have to stop. You can try to get a bit of levels up, but you can literally run from that point to that door. You ignore them and just run through. And this is the armory. You didn't even have to look for it. You literally have to go through it. And this is another boss where you need fire res. So if you didn't get fire res in the first one, you should have got it in the second one. You need to take out a bunch of junk, and then this guy spawns, and he is pretty much a spewing magma guy. So as I said, by the end of this video I still only got like 8% fire res, and it's mainly dodging and stuff. And as you can see, even just standing in a little, I'm melting. And all you do is stand side on and attack, and as you can see, my minions took most of the damage for me. And literally, there's the side quest half done, because you actually got to talk to another guy. But he's on the path as well, you don't have to look for him. So the armory unlocks by just doing the actual main quest. So don't worry about it. And you just run through, go to the lower district. You can just ignore them. You talk to the guy along the way. And then you come to this guy. Now, this guy has a laser beamy thing. You can't stand too close. The hitbox seems a bit wider than the visual hitbox. He's got a couple of attacks you got to watch out for. That one not so much. Doesn't do that big a damage. That one you don't want to stand in. And then he should do, well, that's his lightning ball thing. And then the next thing he should do is the beam. Yep. What? Yeah. I stood right in front of him and lost half my life. But if you stand and attack him and think you're safe, you could melt quite quickly. And then you take him out. Touch another shard. And go to place unknown. So far you shouldn't have had much issue. It's just how much damage you can cause. Now, Elder Gazpacho is here. You pick your mastery. You can't pick after you choose that, so do pick wisely. You go back to the chamber, talk to the side mission people, and then go through that door and you end up in a swamp. Jungle. I'll call it a swamp. Here's where you benefit if you picked up some poison res, but as long as you don't let those brigands actually get off a bunch of attacks, you either run past them, because as you can see it's an open doorway, so you run past them, or you dodge their attack and then take them out before they can actually flood the area. Now you are technically in chapter 3. Technically it was over at the end of the last boss, but there's like a middle ground between that and actual chapter 3. Now chapter 3 you want to try to get some necro resistance and lightning. A little bit of lightning, but as you go you'll need more and more lightning, so you might as well start getting that up. But that necro is quite important. You will have to run through a lot of skeletons later, which the necro will help you survive or just run through them. Depending on how your character builds and how you're doing it and everything, it's actually quite important. Take all the side missions and all that, check the rewards. With my disability and stuff, my memory is just terrible. I can't remember who gives what, except for the fact that Armory is unlocked by just running through. So we go north. I like doing things the same way every time, just as a pattern. So I take all the side quests. So if I actually paid attention and only took certain side quests over and over and over again, I might learn, but I'd rather just click on everyone. As you see, we just run through door to door. Now this, we have to fight our way from here over to the question mark. And then the question mark then gives us a quest, which then all of a sudden 3 things spawned. Now these soul chambers are dangerous, whilst only if you get trapped. Now you can get unlucky and drag a bunch of monsters around you, so you're actually trapped. But once you take all them out, you come back. He does a little twisty whirly thing, explodes, and the door out is there. Then you go back, do the stash, empty your stuff out if you need to. You got the armory and stuff available, so if you need to craft some necro stuff, do it. A bit of void also. And then we need to fight our way from here to the quest line. You do not want to actually run through this, because these guys are actually very annoying if you do that. You want to try to take them on bit by bit, because they are some of the more annoying little chasers. Now you go there, you got to take out a centipede. Now as long as you have some sort of damage, he should fall quite quickly. And then you go talk to the guy, or structure, or whatever. He doesn't look like he's all there. And then you go back to town. Talk to the cultists sitting on the floor, do any sort of stuff you need to do, and then go through that door. This is another one where you just run through to the fight. They could really make these shorter, to be honest. Like, you're literally just running to the fight. Like, you could save like 2 minutes by not having to run that far. Now this guy, you stand to the side, he's got that beam. That's where the lightning comes in if you make mistakes. He throws out people that aren't that big a deal. But yeah, you just stand aside and smack him until he falls over and run to the door. Now we're getting along, we're probably halfway through doing chapter 3. Another one where you just go down here to do a side quest, and you literally, if you have the movement skill, run from door to door. Unless you really want to try to get those RNG drops and some level, then there's no point. Just run door to door. This you want to run here, take out whatever's hanging around, do that, and 2 easy passive points that you pretty much didn't have to do anything for. And this one again we want to do, it actually unlocks idle ones, and depending on your build and everything, the idols can either just add a little extra or actually change some things up. Another mechanic where you stand to the side, he's got a little shake thing that drops fireballs everywhere, but once he fires it and it lands, stand where it just landed, and most of the time it won't happen again in that same spot. But you just stand on the side, do stay further away and run away from that obviously, but you got plenty of time. Even without a movement skill on my hotbar, I could just walk out of that. So if you got a movement skill, you can get out of that easy as. And then you pop back, you do whatever you need to do, get back in, you follow the path along, and try to take all these things out. It's a good little leveling bit and damage tester. Go to the courtyard. Now, the shrines and stuff, you want to be trying to hit all the shrines because they can drop. This one, you run from the door to there, you will end up with a bunch of things. That's not actually from me running through, they actually turn up. But this guy just like has a little tantrum and stamps his pole on the ground. He's not really anything. Technically he could be buffed like double, triple as hard. Because yeah, he's not really even worth having there as a doorstop. Now this I've sped through because it is a very, very long quest line. But use this area that we just went through, the Lotus Halls, and the next area after this as leveling areas. If you think you're behind or you want to get a couple more points to get a skill or one of the, I'll call them nodes, that help your skill, then do clear the entire thing. Because all you need to do is go down the thing, it tells you, go touch the shiny thing, and then click on that, touch the shiny thing, and you do that both sides. Like, it is a very long walk if you don't have a very fast character. Trust me. You really want to make the most of it by just wiping everything out. And in this area too, all you gotta do is A to B, but wipe everything out. Because this guy, you want to have an AoE. I'll explain in a second once we get through this twirly part. But if you have an AoE that does multiple targets that aren't quite on top of each other, it'll help. And also don't do what I'm about to do. Stand there and get an iron bar dropped on your head. And these balls, it takes forever for the drop to happen. These guys that fire that beam, if you've got an AoE, you can attack him and them all at once, and you do it quicker. But do take them out if you start getting a few, because they just get annoying. And then you touch the shard, go back to the end of time. You got to talk to Gaspaccio again. He'll then send you to the Imperial Era. And then we got to do a long run, which a lot more games seem to be doing. And technically we're in chapter 4, which is where we'll end it. Do let me know how you found it and if there's any other points I should mention along with it.